הממשלה בנימין נתניהו ורעייתו הגברת שרה נתניהו.
פניים שפה שונאי ישראל בהיסטוריה מולדת ברוב החובה לכל מדינה שתגיע תזכה לכבוד מלכים תשואות צוערות עד רקיע דלתות ושווקים נפתחים.
ברוך הבא ראש הממשלה בנימין נתניהו ורעייתו. נמצאת איתנו השרה האהובה על כולנו מירי רגב, שרת התרבות והספורט.
צריך חכמים קוריאנים לומדים את המשק פטנטים כל יום נרשמים אימתה בפחד בסוריה אויבים באיראן נלחצים בחרנו מלכי סעודיה פותחים בחשאי ערוצים לא ניתן לך פרקליט להדיח ראש ממשלה רק העם כולו יחליט ויפסיקו את הגזלה
תודה רבה, מבקש פליז sit down, בבקשה לשבת. אני רוצה להזמין את הגברת ניקול מונקי נתניה להעניק זר פרחים לרעיית ראש הממשלה האהובה על כולנו הגברת שרה נתניהו. תודה רבה, תודה רבה לגברת נתניהו, תודה רבה לשרה רגב. לא שומעים. אמן. Thank you very much. אדוני ראש הממשלה, אני רוצה להגיד לך הרבה תודה שהגעת לכאן הישר מהקריה אחרי מה שקורה בדרום, ואני רוצה להגיד לך משהו אישי. יש לי שני בנים חיילים בצבא הגנה לישראל, אחד נמצא שם בגזרה כעת, ואם יש מישהו שאני בוטח בו שישמור על ביטחון מדינת ישראל, האיש הזה עומד פה לימיני. ביבי! 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 הוא האיש שכולנו בעוד שבוע וכמה שעות צריכים לקחת את האחים שלנו, את הילדים שלנו, את השכנים שלנו ולהצביע נתניהו, להצביע מחל. vote מחל, vote נתניהו, vote מחל, vote נתניהו, vote מחל, vote נתניהו. רק ככה, אדוני ראש הממשלה, אנחנו מודים לך, ואתה ראש הממשלה בעזרת השם בעתיד גם. תודה רבה אדוני.
תודה. תודה לך יעקב החגואל. תודה לכם. You speak English? All of you? Miki, גם אתה. Well, I'm very happy to be here with my friends. no greater friend in the world than Governor Mike Huckabee. Thank you, Mike. Please stand up. You deserve all the... And Mrs. Huckabee, thank you. No greater friend in the world. No greater friend. And he's a soulmate. He really is. It's the common roots, the common values, and the common destiny. And Mike, I want to thank you for years, decades of fervent support for the Jewish state and the Jewish people, and for me personally, for me and for Sarah. Thank you. Thank you. ואני שמח להיות כאן עם חברנו. מיקי זוהר לקח על עצמו את כל המטות בגלל האנגלית המשובחת שלו. תודה רבה, מיקי. ומירי שמביאה את התרבות לכל מקום. תודה לך, מירי. תודה, מירי רגב השרה. She's very shy about voicing her opinions. So I'll speak for her tonight. וגם ניר ברקת, שר האוצר המיועד של הליכוד. גנץ מביא כלכלה בולשביקית. גנץ מביא כלכלה בולשביקית, ושר האוצר המיועד שלו זה יו"ר ההסתדרות ניסנקורן. אני מביא את הכלכלה...
He doesn't know English.
We bring a free economy, our fantastic successes for Israel, and a designated finance minister who was a great success as a high-tech entrepreneur. That's Nir Barkat. Gantz brings his one experience in civilian life. He headed a company that promptly went to bankruptcy. And his finance minister is the head of the Histadrut Nisankorn, some free economy. A joke. What do you want? You want a socialist economy? You want a free economy? So you have to work for it. You have to vote Likud, and you have to get your friends to vote Likud. Wait a minute. 10 more years. 10 more years. Now that's, it's okay.
20 more years.
It's a bit of a stretch, don't you think? It's fine. Look, when I look at some of the candidates across the sea, I'm an infant. But thank you. But in the time that I've had the privilege and the honor of leading this country, we together have turned it into a global powerhouse. Israel is ranked as the 8th power in the world. And there's something amazing there. Something amazing there. All the countries that are ahead of us number in the hundreds of millions, one in over 1 billion, and most of them in tens of millions, almost all of them, enormous. Japan is before us, it has 120 million. We are 9 million. All the countries after us, also gigantic countries, including one that is also over 1 billion. Yet Israel stands out in being a tiny country geographically and very small in population, but gigantic in achievement, gigantic in spirit, gigantic in mind, gigantic in heart. Now, how did that come about? Well, I mentioned one thing. We changed the economy. It was a closed economy. When I took over for the first time as Prime Minister in 1996, you couldn't take $1,000 out of this country without going to the central bank and registering that. Did you know that? Did you know that? Come on, you're not that young. I mean, you're young, but you didn't know that? Okay. If you came back to Israel and you had more than $1,000 or $2,000 in your pocket and you didn't register that with the Bank of Israel, then you would be guilty of a crime. And I removed all that, one fell swoop. By the way, you remember there used to be a magazine called Newsweek? Remember that? Wasn't that hot anyway. But there is a famous case of an Israeli citizen who wanted to have, I don't know for what reason, but he wanted to have a registration for a subscription for Newsweek. So he had to go to the central bank to get accreditation for dollars to get a Newsweek subscription. This was Israel as late as 1996. Can you imagine? And I came in, and one of the first things that I did was I removed all the foreign exchange controls. So you can come in, take your money, bring it in, bring it out. And people said to me, Prime Minister, you know, no one has dared do this. If you do this, a mountain of money will move. And you know what? It did move. But didn't move out. It moved in. Because money, capital, trade, investment, innovation, they move into the free economies away from the closed economies. And we made Israel into a free economy. This year, just now, the last quarter results, Israel's GDP grew by, first of all, it tells you what the Israeli media is like, Mike. Because they don't know. I mean, if this was a leftist government, believe me, they would know. It's almost 5%, unheard of, 4.8%. Our GDP per capita has crossed Japan 2 years ago, and this year, apparently, we crossed Britain and France. It's unbelievable. Remember they used to say, you have to go abroad to see how people live well. Well, people from abroad are coming to Israel to see how we live, what we do, what we innovate, how we innovate. So we had to change the economy and put it on free market lines, and that gave us a tremendous spark of ingenuity because, you know, people think it's sciences. They think it's mathematics, physics, computer science. They think if you have that, you're going to have tremendous success. Well, there's a country that had tremendous mathematicians, tremendous engineers, tremendous physicists, tremendous metallurgists, and they were going bankrupt. It's called the Soviet Union. If you take one of these mathematicians, smuggle them out of the Soviet Union, put them in Palo Alto in Silicon Valley, they'd be making a fortune in a few weeks. What counts, however important, is not science, it's not even education, although it's critical. But you can have a highly educated, frustrated class that goes nowhere, okay? The crucial thing is not science, not education, but who said that? God, right, free markets. And Israel that had the most gifted people in the world, suffered from the old adage, how do you make a small fortune in Israel? You start with a big fortune, remember that? Okay, well, we changed that big time, okay? Israel has now the most vibrant high-tech economy in the world because we introduced free markets. And with that, we are bringing innovation to all the world. Israel is now a high-tech water power, agricultural power, cyber power, everything, autonomous vehicle power. It affords, once you have free markets and you have education, the combination is unbeatable. As a result of that, many countries are interested in us. They're interested in our intelligence, military intelligence, because we stop terror through our intelligence more than any other country in the world. They're interested in our civilian high-tech, and as a result, they're coming towards Israel. And huge changes are taking place in the world. Huge. You can see that with all the great powers that are coming here, and all the small powers that are coming here. You cannot see the iceberg, but you can see the tip of the iceberg. In the meetings that I have openly, and not secretly, because the secret ones are really a lot more than you can imagine, with Arab leaders. Last year, my wife and I had a very moving visit in Oman. The Sultan of Oman invited us, spent a day and a night, right up till 8 o'clock in the morning with us. Really didn't want to leave. he knew that we knew that he knew that he was on his last days. And he wanted, as one of the last things that he did before he passed away, to invite the Prime Minister of Israel and his wife to this meeting, open meeting in Oman, because he admired Israel. He admired us not because we bow our heads and we say, oh, we're sorry, we did horrible things to the Palestinians, we stole their land and so on. But quite the opposite. He admires us because we stand up straight, because we believe in this country. We believe in our land. We believe in our future. So that was Oman last year, and 2 weeks ago it was Sudan. I met with the president of Sudan in Africa, openly. And he said the same thing. He wants to have normalized ties with Israel, which means moving all the way. And you can see this. There are about 50, 60 Muslim and Arab countries in the world, and you can count on the fingers of one hand, perhaps that many, but I doubt it, the number of countries that don't have deepening relations with us. And I'm talking about huge countries, and virtually all the countries in the Arab world. Okay, they're coming. Well, I need you. You got to go and vote. You got to go and vote. Hey, I want to ask you something. Did you vote last time? Yeah? You didn't vote for me? Okay, so... Oi, wait. Oi. You voted for whom? For Lieberman, Gantz, Ahmed Tibi? Okay, good for you. You've seen the light. Good for you. You voted for it? Yeah. Do you have friends or relatives who... You have no friends. Just go and vote. You have friends? You do? Okay. Do you have friends who support our general policy but didn't go to vote?
No, actually, whoever I know, they did vote. If they voted right, I can't say. I don't think they did. I tried my best.
Well, you got to explain to them what I'm about to tell you. First of all, you only come and vote for one party, Likud, not Lieberman, who goes with the left, not Ben-Gvir, who's not going to pass, and you throw your vote into the dustbin, and not Bennett and Shaked, who are, yeah, right, okay. Well, you vote for Likud, because the only way you can know that you'll have a right-wing, national, strong government for Israel is by voting Likud. Now, there's another reason, not merely the economic success, the security success. I don't know if you know this. I mean, this is another thing. The press in Israel is very...
Left-wing.
Is very... The press in Israel is ridiculous. It's so one-sided. It doesn't merely deal with distorting events. The main thing that they do is ignore our successes. That's the main thing that they do. So they just ignore our successes in every way that they can. And one thing that they want to do is, of course, ignore the spectacular success of Israel's security policy under my leadership. So here's the facts. In the last year, the IDF reported, it's an IDF statistic, not mine, it's ours, that said that 2019 was the year with the least soldiers' casualties since the founding of the State of Israel. And the National Statistics Bureau also had something to say about the last decade. In the last decade, they said, is by far, the lowest casualties among civilians and soldiers of all of Israel's decades. But the decade before that is much, much higher. It's over double what it was. Now, the reason Israel is secure while we're in the middle of this fantastic turbulence of radical Islam, of Iran and its proxies, of Al-Qaeda and Daesh, the reason Israel is successful is not accidental. It's because we lead a policy of peace through strength and strength through strength. We don't say strength through weakness. Oh, if we only offer these dangerous concessions, our neighbors will agree to our existence and our right to exist. Quite the opposite. Now, for 11 years, I had to ward off enormous pressures from two American administrations who, no. Relax. First of all, understand, even when we have disagreements with American presidents, America under any president is the best ally that the state of Israel could hope for. The best ally. But I had my differences. I had my differences over Iran, and I had my differences over the expected withdrawal. They wanted us to withdraw to the 67 boundaries with minor infinitesimal corrections. And I refused on either count. I disagreed. And I had to go to the American Congress because I thought that the dangerous Iran deal would imperil Israel's existence. It wasn't an easy thing to do, but I did it. And I'm glad President Trump has changed that policy. And I disagreed completely with the calls for withdrawal, dangerous withdrawals in Judea and Samaria, and the policy of not one brick. That's what I was told, not one brick. And I said, when I heard this in the White House, I said, well, you don't mean not one brick. Half of Jerusalem is beyond the 67 lines. And they said, there too, not one brick. I said, in Gilo too? And the response was, in Gilo too. And I said, well, no. You have to be able to say no. But anybody can say no. How do you make sure that the no is received? There is a great Prime Minister of Israel that I admire. The more I read about him, the more I admire. His name is David Ben-Gurion, our first Prime Minister. He was a great Prime Minister. And yet in 1956, after we conquered the Sinai, following the Fedayeen attacks from the Egyptian side, the President of the United States, Eisenhower, told Ben-Gurion, leave. He gave him an ultimatum. And what did Ben-Gurion do? No. He left. No, he wanted to say no. He left. He had no choice. Because the only way that the Prime Minister of Israel can make the no stick is to be able to turn to the most powerful power in the most powerful country in the world. And the most powerful power in a democracy, in any democracy, but especially in a democracy that goes to elections every 2 years, is public opinion. If you can influence public opinion, you can change the fate of your country. And I turn to the American people and through their representatives in the American Congress. That's the secret. I've had the privilege of speaking to the American people hundreds of times on primetime television. Their television is better than ours. You think, Mike, it's bad. Well, you have Fox, and you're complaining. We don't have Fox. We don't have Fox. What's Slim is very good, but it's still small, okay? Well, we don't have the kind of press that they have in the United States with all the criticisms. I could appear there for hundreds of times, and the American people respect what I had to say, and they got to know me. And that gives you the power to appeal to public opinion. And that's the key. The key is public opinion. By the way, when Ben Gurion said, after conquering the Sinai, that we will not leave the Sinai for 1,000 years, that's what he said. My late father, Professor Netanyahu, went to see him. He was out of politics. He had been in the United States, working during World War II, to mobilize Republican, that was unbelievable at the time, Republican support for a Jewish state that was followed by a Democratic support for a Jewish state. That was my father's work in 1944. He did, and he mobilized public opinion by writing ads. He wrote ads, and the ads paid for themselves. If somebody else wrote the ad wouldn't pay for itself. But when my father wrote the ads, they would pay for themselves. And he mustered a campaign for public opinion, which very much annoyed the president at the time, Roosevelt. But my father went to see, horror of horrors, he went to see Senator Taft and the Republicans, and he talked to them and he said, you should support a Jewish state. And they said, why? And he said, because it's right, and because we will be the only force in the Middle East to countervail the Soviet Union's aggression after the war. And they said to him, by the way, they took him from one to the other. They took him right up to Eisenhower, because he never heard such a thing. And he said, you? I mean, the Arabs will crush you. He said, no, they won't. We will crush them. So you will have the best ally in the world. This is how my father influenced public opinion, by speaking to leaders and speaking to the public at large. And following the Republican Party's adoption of a platform calling for a Jewish state in 1944, sure enough, the Democratic Party, three months later, adopted that platform too. So in many ways, my father, Professor Ben-Zion Netanyahu, who was 34 years at the time, 34 years old at the time, is the father of the American bipartisan pro-Israel policy. People don't know that. So in 1956, when Ben Gurion announced that we would never leave, I just want to make sure you're following. Good. So it's not a story, it's true. This is all covered in historian Raphael Medov's recent books. My father never wrote about his extraordinary work during the war, but he went to see Ben Gurion right after the war. He was the editor. My father was a scholar and the editor of the Encyclopedia Hebraica. It's like our Britannica. And he went to see Ben Gurion. Ben Gurion immediately saw him. And he said to him, you know, you're going to leave. And he said, why should I leave? He said, because Eisenhower will give you an ultimatum. You'll have to leave. He said, so what can I do about it? And my father told him, you have to mobilize American public opinion. And he said, how do I do that? And my father told him what to do. Well, he didn't do it. He didn't do it. But my father taught me how to do it. And I did it. And I'm doing it all the time. And therefore, if you want to be the Prime Minister of Israel, you have to be able to say that short word, no. And you have to be able to back it up by turning to American public opinion. So, that and the mission that I inherited from my father and from my grandfather and from our fathers and mothers, that I inherited from Hebron, where we went today, Sarah and I, on the cave of the patriarchs and matriarchs. That's our mission. But to conduct the mission, we have to have the capacity to lead. And to lead means also to stand up to things that will imperil our existence, but at the same time also to seize opportunities when they arise. And so for 11 years, I blocked these pressures. And when my friend Donald Trump ascended to the presidency, I saw a tremendous opportunity. A tremendous opportunity. And I asked him to leave the dangerous Iran deal. He did. Just to add a bit of persuasion, I sent the Mossad to the heart of Tehran to bring Iran's secret atomic archive, brought it to the Oval Office, and Trump saw it and he said, that's it, I'm out. I asked him to leave the Iran deal, he did. I asked him to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, he did. I asked him to move the American embassy to Jerusalem, he did. I asked him to recognize our sovereignty in the Golan Heights, he did. I asked him to recognize the legitimacy of our settlements, our communities in Judea, Samaria, he did. And then a few weeks ago, how come you are rising and they're sitting? I want to see this. It's an interesting thing. So a few weeks ago, I had the extraordinary privilege of having a momentous occasion when, after 3 years of working closely with President Trump and his team, he brought forward the Trump plan, which will recognize Israel's sovereignty in the Jordan Valley, the Northern Dead Sea, and all the communities, large and small, in Judea and Samaria. That's totally unrelated to whether the Palestinians accept this or not. It just requires the completion of a mapping activity, because this area has a perimeter of 800 kilometers. It's huge, okay? And that mapping activity has already started in Israel. But tomorrow begins the joint mapping activity of the Israeli team and the American team. And we will apply Israeli law to these parts of our ancient homeland, and the United States will recognize that too, providing we form the next government. Because it won't happen if Benny Gantz forms the next government. Why? Because he said, well, you know, they've switched courses, you know. A few months ago, his closest advisors, Ronen Sur on the Israeli side and Joel Benenson on the other side, compared President Trump to Hitler. That's a minor point. 3 of the blue and white Knesset members petitioned me not to let candidate Trump meet me if he came to Israel. That's blue and white as they really are. They're the same blue and white who opposed taking the gas out of the seabed. They said, keep it there. Now they say, we'll use the gas, we're for it. These are the same people who, when I built a fence, a wall they call it, Mike, along our border with the Sinai, with Africa, to bar all these illegal immigrants, they said, don't do it. That's what Chief of Staff, Gabi Ashkenazi, and his lieutenant, Benny Gantz, said, don't build it. They opposed the gas, they opposed the wall, they were for the Iran deal. Benny Gantz said it has very many positive elements to it. And Yair Lapid, the expert on America, said that when I go to the American Congress, I'll ruin forever our relations with the United States. Right. He was as good in these things as he was in the economy, and he was lousy in both. So these people now pretend that they'll do it. They're all fervent rightists. But, again, what horse? Why are you limited to one animal? This is ridiculous. These people just pretend to be what they're not, because they know that the people in Israel are right and center right, and they pretend to be what they're not. You know what? I respect leftists who come out and say, I disagree with them, but at least they say their view, These people who are closet leftists just pretend to be what they're not. They pretend to be rightists, they're not. Yair Lapid said just a few months ago, the solution is not to apply Israeli law on all the communities and so on. It's to evacuate or to tear out 100,000 settlers. That's what he said, 100,000. And Benny Gantz, of course, agreed with it. So now they pretend, and Benny Gantz says, I will, did you hear this? He said, I'm for it, but providing there's international agreement. From where? The UN? The EU? Europe. Well, Eastern Europe, maybe? Okay. But from where? From Abu Mazen? Abu Mazen will agree that Itamar is like Itzhar, like Tel Aviv? Come on, give me a break. In fact, even if he got such an international agreement, he'd still have a hard time getting an agreement in his own party from Yael German, Ofer Shelach, Yair Lapid. But even if he got that, he'd still be stuck because he'd need the agreement of someone else. Ahmed Tibi, Ayman Uda, and the Joint Arab List. And by the way, the Joint Arab List has a Jew in there. So it's not a question of whether they're Arabs or Jews, it's what their position are. They support terrorism, they're against Zionism, they're against the Jewish state. And Ahmed Tibi said to Gantz, if you recognize Israeli sovereignty, apply Israeli sovereignty or the application of Israeli law over the Jordan Valley, you're not going to be prime minister. You'll be the leader of the opposition. And here's why he's right. Because Benny Gantz cannot form a government without the support or the abstention, it's the same thing, of Ahmed Tibi in the Knesset. Simple mathematics. They have, by the way, we're beating them tonight in the polls. Beating them. All polls. Moving. Of course. Why? You know why? Because people understand the simple math that I just said. And I want you to explain to every one of your friends who's seriously considering voting for blue and white that they're voting actually for Ahmed Tibi. That's what they're doing. And why is that? Because Gantz has blue and white 34 top. They don't. But give him, you know what a bakshish is, Mike? It's like a tip. A bonus. We'll give him a bonus. 34. Give him 36. And Meretz, give them 8, give them a bonus 2, give them 10, that's 46. Give Lieberman 7, I'm not giving him any tip, you should take it down. But 53, they don't. According to tonight's polls, they have 49, but say they make it to 52, which is what they have now, and they're not getting it, okay? They still need another 9 seats. Where are they gonna get it? They're gonna get it from Tibi and from Ayman Uda, and you know, they try to be cute about it. They say, oh, but they're not going to be in the government. Hey, come on. We didn't say they'd be in the government. We'd say they'd support you in the Knesset. So stop lying on that too. You know, that's where they're going. They say, well, okay, we may not be able to have 61 seats who actually vote for us, but we'll have more Jews, then they have to correct that, and they say Zionists on our side. Well, that doesn't bear out because we're about 58 right now, and they're 49, and Tibi makes the difference. Where are they going to get these Jewish or Zionist votes? Class? This is not differential equations, you know. This is like, where are they going to get these votes? Where do they think? Well, where did they try to get them last time? Gantz was going to do this. He was going to do a minority government based on Ahmed Tibi in the joint list, and he was going to take, who was he going to take?
Shas.
Who said that? What? Yeah, right. He was going to take Bennett and Shaket, not Rafi Peretz. But that's what he was planning. It's sort of, I broke that up at the last moment. But, yeah, I did. But, you know, that's another reason. You want to make sure you have a right-wing government? Don't believe all this BHS that they're giving you, okay? Vote Likud. That's the only way that you're assured that your vote will actually bring a right-wing government. So, long and short of it is, Gantz cannot form a government without Ahmed Tibi. He cannot. And the choice that people have today is a government of Gantz and the left with Ahmed Tibi, or a government of the right and Likud with... Right. That's it. So first of all, tell that to your friends. And then they say, and by the way, that's a government that will do historic things. Will apply Israeli law. Will finally cement our hold on our homeland. Will make a historic defense treaty between Israel and the United States. Will continue to open up the economy and make Israel an enormous power in the world. Because, great again? Well, it is great. We made it great. We made it great. But I learned from my father a simple lesson of history, which I read also in an American writer who I very much admire. His name is Will Durant. Mike, did you ever read The Story of Civilization? He wrote 11 volumes, Will Durant, with his Jewish wife, Ariel. He wasn't Jewish, but he was a great writer, a great historian. And towards the end of his life, he wrote a book called The Lessons of History. It's a very short book, it's 100 pages. You have to read it. Every word is carved in the stone of truth and wisdom. And he said, history does not favor Jesus Christ over Genghis Khan. History is very cruel. It favors the strong. The strong tend to be the more numerous. So the more numerous nations have a tremendous edge, okay? But he says, I think on page 19, there are exceptions sometimes that some peoples with the vision of leaders and the fervent adherence of followers can overcome the laws of history. And he says, modern Israel, which was a young state at the time, this is 1970, is an example of this exception. We have broken the laws of history. We have brought a people back from the grave. We've resuscitated our language. We've resuscitated our homeland, our sovereignty, our army, our economy, our science, our brilliance, our spirit, our dreams. We've gathered the exiles. This is what we've achieved. This is what we stand for. But to have this vision and this mission continue, you have to vote Likud. You have to go out there and convince your doubters and your people. Tell them to vote Likud. Tell them that the other guys are fake right. Tell them that the other side is fake clean. Clean? Did you hear of the fifth dimension? Did you hear of the fifth dimension? Some clean, huh? Fifth dimension, Benny Gantz and other Knesset member in blue and white, Ram Ben Barak, headed a company that went bankrupt, but not before it swindled the police and got a contract for 50 million shekels without a contract, presenting a product, a cyber product that didn't exist, and 5 customers that didn't exist, and took 4 million shekels out of that into their own pockets, into the pockets of their company from which they drew enormous salaries, never returned it to the taxpayer, and received cyber software from the police without any authorization that may now form a serious security breach. They went to one client outside, tried. It's the Ministry of Defense in Moscow. They were brought there by their single investor, Vexelberg, who's wanted by the Americans. And this was not investigated until 2 days ago. Now they say they launched an investigation. After the elections, of course. After the elections. Okay? So that's... It's a very simple thing. After they got the money, that's right. So these are the two. Then you have Gabi Ashkenazi. Not only did he bring his company to bankruptcy, but he also was accused of deceiving his investors in the Shemin company. And he too was not investigated. Why? If it's not bibi, you don't investigate. It's simple as that. Okay? So that's the third one. And then the fourth one is Yoav Mr. Clean Segalovich. He was the head of, well, please, some sarcasm. Yoav Segalovich, who headed the investigatory arm of the police at the time that Gabi Ashkenazi was being investigated for hiding the Harpaz document, you know that, along with the current Attorney General. They were hiding this document from the then Attorney General. And Gabi Ashkenazi is being investigated by him. And the head of the investigatory unit of the police, this same Segalovich, comes to Ashkenazi, and this is not in the release tape, a little fragment that was released. Gabi Ashkenazi says to his police interrogators, oh yeah, listen, I know Yoav Segalovich, your boss, came here and told me basically what your findings are. That's in the middle of the investigations. Was he investigated, Segalovich? No, that's called obstruction of justice. So now we have number 4. He's not investigated either. And now we have number 5, Yair Lapid. Remember him? So Yair Lapid, he has dozens and dozens of secret meetings with Noni Moses of Yediot Achronot, okay, who was also his employer. And he wipes out the record of these secret meetings from his diary. And then he proceeds to instruct his Knesset members to vote for this scandalous law that tried to close Israel today. And for that, he received monumental positive coverage. Was he investigated? No. Why? If it's not bibi, you don't investigate. Okay, so this is the clean party. This is the corrupt party, exactly. I mean, black is white is black, the whole thing, right is left is right, the whole thing is ridiculous. That's the truth. That's what I want you to tell your friends. Tell them to vote for our common future. Tell them that what's at stake is history. Tell them that what's at stake is destiny. I'm not flouting highfalutin words. It's all true. And when they tell you, but you know, it's hard to go to vote and ask them the next time. So tell them this. You want to know what's hard? Standing up to the entire world against the Iran deal when everybody supported it. That's hard. Standing up to successive American administrations who tell you to go back to the 67 border. That's hard. That's hard. Standing up to the Istadrut and all these special interests. That's hard. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it without your support, without the support of our great friends in the evangelical community in America and around the world and so many others. Tremendous friends of Israel. None stronger. So here's the last thing I want to tell you. When they tell you it's hard, tell them this. I had a meeting with an American Secretary of State, a woman. That narrows down the field. It was in a Europe, it's not who you think. In an American capital, that leaves either London or Paris, okay? And she said to me this, she said, Prime Minister, we expect you to make these concessions, which I refuse to do. And she said, if you don't make these concessions, we'll go out to the world press that is waiting outside, and I'll tell them that you and your government are the obstacles to peace in the Middle East. I'll give you 2 hours. And I said, Madam Secretary, I don't need 2 hours. I don't need 2 minutes. Let's go out now. You can tell them whatever you want. And I'll tell them that I represent the ancient Jewish people who've been fighting for our existence and our place under the sun for 3,500 years, fighting for our land and our state and our future, and I will never do something to endanger that. So if you believe in that, tell them it's not hard to go 5 minutes and vote for us, vote for Likud, vote for yourselves. Thank you very much.
Can I ask the First Lady, Sarah Netanyahu, members of Knesset, ministers of the Knesset, Ellie, Sonia, Kevin, please come up for Latikva. Aroni, Eitan.
הבית שלי, הדרך שלי, הליכוד, זה נכון. והעתיד שלי, הביטחון שלי, הליכוד, זה נכון. בדרך שלנו נביא השלום, נהיה עלייה, הגשמת החלום. כולנו ביחד, כל אחד לחוד, יודעים שזה נכון, זה הליכוד. הליכוד הוא בלב, הליכוד הוא בראש, הליכוד זה נכון. הבית שלי, הדרך שלי, הליכוד זה נכון. העתיד שלי, הביטחון שלי, הליכוד זה נכון. בדרך שלנו נביא השלום, נהיה עלייה, הגשמת החלום. כולנו ביחד, כל אחד לחוד, יודעים שזה נכון, זה הליכוד.
Bibi or Bibi? I don't even wait for the supermarket for 10 minutes. I just go to my college. I have no patience for waiting. That's the only person really in years that I've waited for. I just don't have that patience.
הליכוד הוא בלב, הליכוד הוא בראש, הליכוד זה נכון. רק אחד יכול, מול כל השמאל, הליכוד, הליכוד זה נכון.
Bibi! 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 Bibi!
הבית שלי, הדרך שלי, הליכוד זה נכון. והעתיד שלי, הביטחון שלי, הליכוד זה נכון. בדרך שלנו נביא שלום, נהיה עלייה, הגשמת החלום. כולנו ביחד, כל אחד לחוד, יודעים שזה נכון, זה הליכוד. הליכוד הוא בלב, הליכוד הוא בראש, הליכוד זה נכון. רק אחד יכול, ובשמאל, הליכוד